Hey guys, it's Steve here with another bat rep. This time I'm trying out something fresh for me. I've got a Nemo 1 list. Now I'm pretty happy with my Maddox and Nemo 3 lists at the moment, but I just wanted to try out Nemo 1 just to see what he's like, and it's a pure jack spam list. So I filled it up with cheap heavies, and here's what the list looks like. So it's Nemo 1, and obviously he's got a Squire with him. Now the thing about Nemo is that he can give jacks up to 4 focus, and he also has something called Arcane Accumulator, so it means that when solos cast spells, or anyone casts spells within his control range, then he gets power tokens which he converts to focus for the following turn, and he can get 3 of those. So along with Power Up and the 2 junior warcasters in this list, including the Squire and Strange Ways, I can actually run this list at 27 focus, which is pretty crazy levels of focus. And to me that lends itself to cheap jack spam, because you have enough focus to run them all. And actually being able to put 4 focus on jacks instead of only the 3 makes them pretty amazing, because it's just that one extra attack or that one extra boost that you need. How often you end up just leaving someone on 1 box or whatever, this solves that problem. So yeah, so we got Nemo 1, we got the Squire, and his battle group is Dynamo, because Dynamo is pretty special with Nemo with the rerolls on the shooting. Now there's no feat to boost the damage for Dynamo in this list, but Dynamo with Lightning Shroud on him to put him up to a base melee attack of 19, and then combine that with 4 focus on him means that he can do a power 19, 20, 21, 22 and 23 melee attack. Makes him pretty devastating in melee. Then we've also got 2 Hammersmiths, so they're pretty interchangeable in this list with Ironclads. I'm not sure what's best really, but we've got the 2 Hammersmiths here, and with Nemo they can get up to 7 attacks each per turn, which is pretty amazing. And again, Lightning Shroud can move them up to power 19. So that can be pretty crazy amount of attacks and pretty high damage. Now we've got 1 Ironclad in here, and as I said, there's 3 12-point jacks, so they're all pretty interchangeable between Ironclads and Hammersmiths. And it's just a starting list, so we'll see when I refine it, then we'll see what happens with swapping out those jacks. I've also got a Defender in here, and in this list it's kind of 3 waves. So the Defender and Dynamo comprise the final wave, and the whole time that they're not involved in melee they can still do some pretty nasty shooting. So that range 16 gun on the Defender is pretty crazy. And we've also got the Lancer in the battle group, because Nemo doesn't want to be anywhere near any of the enemy models. Although he can get to pretty high levels of armor with Arcane Shield and Deceleration, he's still pretty scared about getting assassinated. So we've got the Lancer in here to make sure that I can still cast all of the buffs on all of the jacks. They're all 6-inch buffs, so yeah. Then we just got the 2 juniors. We've got Jakes with a Centurion on her. It's quite handy having the Centurion on Jakes, because she can give it the no knockdown, no push business. The extra defense isn't that great, but no knockdown on the Centurion, no push is pretty good, as we know from Nemo 3. And then the junior warcaster for Arcane Shield, and then the Fireflies attached, just because that's what fits in the points. So, as I said, I'm not unsatisfied with my other 2 lists, but this is one I just wanted to try out. It's 8 jacks in the list, it's pretty crazy, and yeah, should be a lot of fun. So, I managed to get another game in against Leon, and his Butcher 3 list. He's changed it a little bit. He swapped out a lot of the solos and put in the Winter Guard unit here with a few rocket guys. And that's in theme, which means one of his jacks is then able to do an advanced move, just to get it a little bit further up the board. But so from left to right here, you can see the Juggernaut, and you can see the unit of Winter Guard, and then Butcher's at the back there with his couple of doggies, one of the 2 Kodiaks and Ruin, another Juggernaut, and then the Devastators there on the end. So here's what the table looked like. Leon got first turn, so I decided to go on the side that has a nice house to hide Nemo behind. Leon deployed way over onto the left-hand side, I think he was intending to try and control the zone there that's opposite the Winter Guard, the round zone, and the rectangular zone there with his jacks. It's quite an interesting deployment, and I responded to that by putting the Centurion up opposite his army, and then I just squeezed as many jacks as I could in between the house and the rough terrain there. The rough terrain is the one with the light shining off it, so you can't really see the texture on the top of the terrain piece there, but that is rough terrain. And I've got a 12-inch deployment zone here, which is crazy, really far up, and it also means that Nemo just has to move a millimetre and then he's outside of the kill box. And then finally on the right-hand side I've got got Dynamo and the Defender, and I figured that their threat ranges for their guns are pretty far, so they can afford to be as far away from his army as possible. All in all, with hindsight, I'd say I spread out way too much. I've got locomotion and this crazy far deployment, so I don't think I really needed to worry too much about that rough terrain there. And I think Dynamo and the Defender are far too far away from Leon's army. Also, I can't really score on that big round zone unless it's with Nemo, because the new version of Steamroller 2017 solos can no longer score those large zones. So if I want to score that zone, I've got to move Nemo up. So I think it would have been better to have a few more jacks in the centre of this deployment. Then, as is quite common with Steamroller 2017, there's a line of sight blocking piece of terrain right in the centre of the board. And that seems to be changing things quite a lot. It means that you have to kind of be prepared to play around it, which quite often means having a weak side and a strong side. And as you can see here, Leon's deployed with his strong side on my left, and I've deployed my strong side on my right. And what that means is fairly predictably that the game will spiral across around the centre where that line of sight blocking piece of terrain is. And I think this is going to be a way that's the games are going to go quite often here. Depending on which zones you want to get and all that kind of stuff, then you'll be kind of slowly rotating, the battle line will be slowly rotating around that centre. So here's the first slide, which is actually after we've both had our first turn. So Leon went all the way up and just got Ruin that far up there. So this is really, because we've got so many jacks, I think there's 14 jacks on the table, this is really a threat range war in the sense that whoever can out-threat the other one is the one who's going to be trading favourably with the peace trade. We've got tons of cheap jacks each. So really I want to be trading my Ironclad and 2 Hammersmiths favourably with maybe Ruin or one of his more expensive jacks, and then hopefully still being able to take out his more expensive jacks, his cheaper jacks with my shooting and follow-up attacks. And in this case, I actually do out-threat because he's got Energizer. So we've got a lot of slow jacks between us, but some of my jacks are speed 5. But he's got Energizer, so he can add 2 movement to each of his jacks. But I've got Locomotion, which is a more expensive spell, but I've got the focus to be able to do stuff with it. And Locomotion, you can give each jack 3 extra movement. So I should be able to out-threat all of his jacks except for Ruin. And so Ruin is my priority to take down first. So once Ruin's gone, then I will be able to out-threat all of his jacks. So it means I should be able to just stand just outside of his charge ranges. So that would be speed 4 jacks. That's 7 plus 1 inch reach is 8 plus 2 would be 10 inches. So his jacks threaten 10 inches apart from Ruin. So yeah, Leon's moved all the way up into the zone with 4 of his jacks, and his Winter Guard are aiming squarely at the circular zone. And then I had a chance to move up, and as you can see, I've put my Centurion very far over on the left just to contest that zone to stop him being able to score. This turned out to be a pretty big mistake because I've actually put the Centurion, I put Arcane Shield up on him, which meant that I couldn't put Sidekick up on him, which means that he can be pushed, and that means that he's within the spell push range of Butcher, so he can move Butcher up and he can just push that Centurion towards the Butcher and take him down. So it's something I didn't take into account this time, and obviously this is my first game with this list, so I need a lot of practice to avoid making silly mistakes like that. So the Centurion's there, too far up. Then I've got my Hammersmiths, they're all running. but none of them are getting anywhere near Ruin, so he's got a 13-inch charge range. He gets Pathfinder on the charge, so I'm making sure that all of my jacks are way out of that range. And yeah, so that's why the Ironclad and the 2 Hammersmiths aren't quite as far up as they could have been. Not in any danger of getting charged by any of his other jacks. And then Dynamo and the Defender are just moving up as far as they possibly can, and hopefully this will allow them to take some shots after Leon takes his second turn. And as you can see, I've just put Nemo on the corner of the house in cover, yeah, just to keep him safe. He's a long way away from anything, so it's not too bad. And the Lancer's there trying to keep as close as it can to as many of my jacks as it can, so it's prepared to channel some spells on the next turn. And one thing I forgot to do, and I forgot throughout the game, is to keep casting spells with my solos to give those power tokens to Nemo. So I don't think I ever went to the maximum number of focus at any time during this game, which is a bit annoying. So it's something, yeah, I need to work on, I need to remember those things. So here's the next slide, and as you can see, just like I said, the Centurion is gone. Leon's put Ruin into the forest, which is actually just outside of the forest and out of line of sight of me, because this is quite a clever tactic, because he can energize a Ruin into the forest, which will then open up all of the lines of sight out of the forest, and then he can charge with his Pathfinder to threaten quite a long way. So it's quite a nice tactic from Leon there. He's also got his Devastator up right in my face, kind of inviting me to try and take him down. And he's armor 23, so traditionally I've had a lot of problems taking that guy down, but actually I think with my Hammersmiths I can actually do it this time. And then he's hanging back a little bit with the rest of his army. Obviously Butcher is the one that took down the Centurion, so he's I believe he feated in order to be able to do that, so he's pretty safe from any assassination runs that I can come up with this turn. Not that any of my jacks are anyway close enough to him. I could probably maybe take some shots with the Firefly, maybe. Yeah, so here's my next turn. And as you can see, I managed to take down that Devastator, so that was quite satisfying, knowing that his attrition, his scenario piece isn't as safe as it used to be anymore. Then I believe I took Ruin down to almost dead. I think he had a few boxes left, but at this point he's knocked down. So what I did was I was very careful when charging the Devastator with my Hammersmiths, because the Devastator can't be knocked down, but he can be pushed and slammed, in fact. Sorry, he can't be pushed, but he can be slammed. So I was able to get my combo smite with the Hammersmith, and I rolled a 6 on the slam movement, and that slammed the Devastator into Ruin and knocked him down. And that allowed me to guarantee that I was going to get some shots with Dynamo and the Defender. No, I didn't need to do the Defender. But yeah, almost took down Ruin. Took out his Cortex, so basically made him pretty useless on this turn. So that was pretty satisfying, and then I didn't manage to take out any of the other jacks, but I'm still outside of his threat ranges for most of the time. I believe my Ironclad is within threat range of the Juggernaut, which maybe was a little bit unnecessary, but at least I'm preventing him from scoring on that zone. And then looking at Leon's next turn. Yes, so that Juggernaut we were just talking about, then that charged into Dynamo, and I think it was pretty unlucky with some of hits. Didn't manage to completely take down Dynamo. I believe he didn't have quite enough focus to fuel him to do that, to take him down completely. And then we've got the Kodiak has moved up quite a long way, and Ruin, I believe, took a shot at the closest Hammersmith to him, but didn't manage to do anything. Oh yeah, the Kodiak has a combo attack as well. When it hits with both of its initials, I believe it can do a headbutt or a throw, and he threw the Hammersmith at Strangeways and knocked them both down. But that worked out pretty well for me, because Strangeways will be able to repair the Hammersmith. He'll be able to stand up and sacrifice his movement just to do that repair on the Hammersmith, and the Hammersmith can spend a focus to stand up and still get his 3 extra focus from Nemo. Then it's really just moving up his jacks outside of my line of sight for all of his guys. Yeah, he's got his dog behind the wall at the back there, and one of them in the other zone. That's preventing me from scoring on the 2 square zones, which is kind of annoying. He's got the Butcher in the trench to make sure I don't get any lucky shots and shoot him down. But now he's got the Winter Guard next to him, then that sacrificial pawn ability means that a Butcher is much harder to assassinate by ranged attacks. So here's what the board looked like after my turn. As you can see, I managed to take down the Juggernaut and the Kodiak, finished off Ruin as well. So it was pretty satisfying. So out of his 6 heavies, he's down to 2, and I've still got 5 left on the board. So if it wasn't for throwing away that Centurion so early, I'd probably be doing pretty well on attrition here. He's only got the 2 heavies and Butcher left to deal with all of those heavies that I've got left. Unfortunately for me, Butcher's a complete badass. So yeah, although it looks like the attrition's going pretty well, Butcher then started to get really angry, and this is what happened. So yes, so both of my Hammersmiths are now missing entirely, and my Firefly's gone. So Butcher on his own took care of the Hammersmith that was closest to him and the Firefly. So that brings him up to 3 jacks that he's removed on this game. Then the Juggernaut there took care of my final Hammersmith. So I'm down from 5 heavies, I'm down to 3. And I'm pretty much ahead on scenario at the moment, but I just can't get ahead far enough to win. So I'm still having to work on the attrition here. So my plan is to try and take down the doggy that's in the top rectangular zone that's preventing me from scoring on that zone, and then try and get the Kodiak off of the other zone somehow. And that would allow me to get enough points to win the game. So that's what I tried to do. Unfortunately, it didn't work out quite as I intended, so I managed to knock down the Juggernaut with the special attack from the Ironclad, which meant that I could then walk up Dynamo up to in front of him and then shoot at the Kodiak. I also, with Dynamo, I tried to shoot at the doggy with the Devastator as well. And although I was boosting to hit, I couldn't kill it, unfortunately. I just couldn't get that one shot on him. Dynamo does a lot of damage to the Kodiak, but again leaves him on a few boxes, doesn't quite get him off that zone. So rather than being able to score the 4 points I needed to get ahead and win the game, I didn't score any extra points. I still scored on my zone, but then Leon is also scoring on his round zone. So yeah, it's not looking very good at the moment, but at this point we were both running pretty low on the clock, and although I was ahead on points and there's not really any chance of getting assassinated by by Butcher, Leon can still try and wear me down on attrition and try and clock me. So here's what the board looked like after his next turn. And as you can see, that Juggernaut stood up and took down Dynamo, finished off his boxes, which was kind of horrible. And I believe it took down the Ironclad as well. So I guess I've skipped 2 turns here because my Devastator, keep saying Devastator, my Defender is up and trying to kill off that Juggernaut. Now I'm missing the final slide here, but what happened was that the Butcher managed to charge across and finish off the Defender, getting him off that zone. But unfortunately, that took so long that Leon managed to clock himself. So Butcher himself being responsible for killing 4 heavies in this... 3 heavies and 1 fire for 1 light on this game. Pretty crazy. Usually I'm able to keep Butcher under control with the threat of assassinating him, but in this case, when he's got those Winter Guard following him around, I really need to get a melee jack into his face, which I didn't manage to do. So yeah, something I need to work on here. And although I won on the clock, I probably would have been able to manage on scenario just about after that 7th turn goes down. So yeah, definitely a pretty strong learning experience for me here. I believe my list has got a pretty good angle against Leon's Butcher list here. Although Butcher himself is so dangerous, you just need to be careful to keep those jacks away from him unless you get the chance to assassinate. So maybe that's the angle that Leon can leverage in any future matches. So yeah, I'm going to keep playing this Nemo 1 list and see how it goes. As I said, I'm not unhappy with my old pair, but what I'm considering is possibly playing a Nemo 3 list with Storm Division to try and leverage the boosted attacks for the Storm Lancers, possibly with a Hurricane. But at the moment, I'm going to play this Nemo 1 list with Maddox. So I will try and play this list as often as I can in the future, and maybe throw in a few Maddox games if the matchup is particularly bad for Nemo 1. So I think I've been going on for long enough, so hopefully that was a pretty good description of what happened, and I'll see you on the next one.